Hey there! If you are one of my regular subscribers or somebody who follows me, then you know I'm Raina the Mermaid and I make mermaid videos. But if you are new and you're finding me because you are looking for some kind of distraction from the existential crisis that's happening in the world right now, and you have stumbled upon my video because I'm reacting to a viral video, then shallow and welcome. I'm Raina. I'm from Canada. I have been a professional mermaid, yes, it's a job, for 16 years. And I have used my YouTube for the majority of that time to document my unique work. I have a background in performance art, in freediving, in environmental education, and in training, and I combined that all together to make this really cool dream job of mine that I did for 16 years, and now I'm sharing all my stories on YouTube. Before we get started, I just wanted to say that being a content creator right now in this phase of what's happening with international politics and the world feels a lot like the violinists on the Titanic who were just playing while the Titanic was sinking. And that was not just made up for the film, that actually happened in real life. I did a cool music video about it for Heather Rankin called Titanically, which you can watch, and two other mermaids from my company performed with me in it. There's a whole side story there about the violins and fiddles. But yeah, it's really feeling like a lot of memes right now. So today I want to talk to you about this video that went viral over the weekend because I made a short about it, and I've also learned a lot more information since then, and I think it's worthy of a long form video to get all the context and to hear the perspective of somebody who works in this industry. So we're going to watch it here. It's about 6 seconds long, and let's see what we think. Yeah, so that just happened. This video is going viral all over the internet. It's mainly this clip, but a few of the other clips are from different perspectives. This is a 22-year-old mermaid performer named Maria, and she is from Russia. She is performing in this big Chinese aquarium. This aquarium and many aquariums like it have these visa programs where they use recruitment groups to go and get performers from other areas of the world, and they bring them in and provide them lodging and residence, kind of like in a group setting, and they pay them a wage, and they also give them the visa so that they can travel back and forth. And I ended up speaking with several mermaids from this particular aquarium and from aquariums that are similar to this in preparation for this video, and they told me that a lot of Russian girls will go and do this work regardless of the circumstances and the situation, because they can actually make a lot more money doing it in China than they can back home. So that kind of gives you a bit of history on why mermaids are going to China to do this kind of work. So what's happening in this video? We have a Chinese aquarium, a Russian mermaid. She's in a fabric mermaid costume. She's wearing goggles. She's doing a little show, and there is a Chinese sturgeon in the water with her. Now, Chinese sturgeons are critically endangered, and they can be up to 16 feet long and weigh over 1,000 pounds. So what we're seeing on the surface is she's doing her little show, and this sturgeon comes along and seemingly attacks her and engulfs her entire head in its mouth, which must have been absolutely terrifying for her, to the point that it pulls her goggles off and she has to swim to the surface. So that is really terrifying. And then, of course, the content went viral. The very first article that was English speaking that picked it up, because there were some Russian posts and Russian articles. And the very first English one to pick it up was the Daily Mail. When I did a short about this, I made sure people understood that the Daily Mail is a tabloid, so you may not be dealing with facts, or you may be dealing with facts that have been kind of manipulated in order to present something more sensational. I've had my own experiences with the Daily Mail, and some of the articles I've been in have been okay, and other ones have been horrible, and some have just had really weird things that were just wrong, like would get my age wrong, or like one said I was a teacher's assistant. I was never a teacher's assistant, I was a teacher. So weird things like that, right? So they're not always the best source of information. So when I made my short, I did make it really clear that like this is the first reports coming out about this. It may not be right. So what the Daily Mail said, and one of the reasons why this clip did go viral, is they said she was forced to go back into the tank and that she sustained injuries, which she did sustain injuries, and that the company tried to pay her 78 pounds, which is a currency, to stay quiet and not tell people about it. So as you can imagine, this was going crazy over the weekend. I have to admit that when I first saw it, I laughed, and it wasn't necessarily because I thought it was funny. It was almost a panic laugh. Like, I could imagine myself in that situation, kind of feeling like the Ralph Wiggum meme where he's like, haha, I'm in danger, like that meme, okay? So it's like this nervous, like, oh my God, that just happened kind of laugh. And I was relieved that she was okay. Why did the sturgeon attack her? Well, first of all, sturgeons don't have teeth, but as you can see by how fast the sturgeon is moving in this video, there is force behind the mouth suction and behind the movement. And Maria, the mermaid, ended up with injuries to her eye and face and back of her head and neck, and she actually did have to go to the hospital to receive treatment, and she's currently not performing because, according to People magazine in an interview that she gave to them, her eye is still injured, so she can't open it underwater and she needs a break from the water. So this is what she has said. She said to People magazine that she did go to the hospital, and she has actually been commenting on many of the posts saying that she did go to the hospital. There were some like tabloid-esque comments saying that they didn't let her go to the hospital and things like that. Why did this fish bite her? That's kind of up for debate, but I've spoken to several people who are experts in the field of fish, and also another merfolk who works in the field as well. And the general consensus is that you can see that the fish have these kind of whiskers, these barbs that come off their face, and they're very sensitive to movement and electric force. So when she's in the water, she's moving her hands above her, and it may be that her hand triggered these barbs on the face of the sturgeon, similar to a fish. And then the problem is after she's moved her hand, her head is in the space where the hand was. So the fish wasn't trying to attack her as a person. It got confused and thought it was going for a fish and had already kind of lined up the bite and got it, right? So it wasn't trying to hurt her. Now, Mermaid Raina, who is from Singapore, she did her own deep dive into this and made a video as well, where she found footage from this aquarium of the mermaids like riding this sturgeon and touching him and climbing over him. And in North American culture, that is really frowned upon. However, at this aquarium, there's also dolphin shows that the mermaids are involved in, and just a lot of practices that would not fly in most North American places because of animal rights and safety, and also for the safety of the performers. So when I see this video, there's a few things that concern me. Obviously, I feel like that sturgeon should not be in a performance tank to begin with. And according to comments that Maria left on the Instagram posts, the sturgeon was actually removed from that environment. So I think that's good. I'm hoping the sturgeon's alive and okay, because it looks like it may have ingested her goggles. So I've been a bit nervous about that. So for me, kind of number one red flag is like, why is a fish that big in there? When you see professional mermaids performing in aquariums, it's a very controlled space. It's only certain animals. And of course, there are many animal rights activists who don't believe we should have animals like that in aquariums at all. I kind of have half and half opinion on it. I think where it's critically endangered, that having it in an aquarium can kind of continue the legacy of that creature, but obviously they're not treating it right. So it's like a kind of situation, right? So that's the first flag I see. And then obviously, like Serena identified, they're manhandling this fish, which is not okay either. The next flag I see is that in none of these videos can I see a safety diver. And I did hear from several of the mermaids who worked at this aquarium or worked before at this aquarium that there aren't safety divers in the water with them. When you see professionals, whether they're scuba, freediving, or mermaids in a tank, there should always be a safety person. And I am of the opinion that the standard in the industry should be that the person is in the water with you. So if you're a mermaid, there is a scuba diver watching you. And if you are following PADI certification, SSI certification, all that, there is supposed to be somebody in the water with you watching you. Anything can happen underwater. You can black out. And I've had 2 experiences in my life where a safety diver had to rescue me, and the situations were not preventable. I couldn't have predicted them. And in both cases, a safety diver was able to get to me quickly so that no harm came to me. And that is the point. That is why you have a safety diver. Also, when you see, like at a Ripley's aquarium and somebody's in the aquarium with a shark, another person is in there with a big rod. And if the shark gets too close, they're like, okay, Sharky, let's just guide you over top here. That is something that should have happened. There should have been somebody in the water with those mermaids, watching them, probably in scuba, who could redirect the fish or just get to her if she needed help. Often people get around this by having somebody watch from above or watch from outside. I don't personally agree with that. I think unless you're doing all of your stuff at the surface and the person's like a rescue diver or a rescue like lifeguard watching from the surface and they're making sure you're coming up for air to get you. Like I know Dive Bar has a team, and one person will be watching with a radio from outside the tank and one person is above the tank and there's a radio. So I think tag teaming like that is really good. At the end of the day, professionals should be doing whatever needs to happen so that if a person blacks out or gets injured, they can be rescued like instantaneously. You got to be able to get that person right away. That mermaid, that diver, that free diver, whoever, you need to get them right away. If you have to run from outside the aquarium and get in and get down and find them, that is not helpful. If you're there underwater with them, or you're floating at the surface with your goggles on watching them and you can dive down and grab them the same way we do with a free diving buddy, like that is a big thing. So those are my red flags so far. The fish is being mistreated. It probably shouldn't be in this performance tank, and there is no safety diver that I can see. Next, while it's not a problem in this video, we have seen it in many viral videos that these budget fabric tails are not safe. Basically, they're like a lycra material, and I'm not bashing affordable tails, but they have their place. It's not in an aquarium where there's a ton of drag coming off of it and it can get stuck on rocks and things like that. There have been other viral videos, one of which I made commentary on, for instance, in South Africa, where a woman's tail caught on rocks and she had to ditch the mermaid tail and she came up for air. And she handled it correctly, but just like this video, there wasn't a safety diver in the water with her. And this happened to her repeatedly, many, many times. So she should not have been continuing to use that tail. That company that managed that aquarium should have swapped out with a better tail that wasn't going to catch on the rocks and constantly put her in that situation. Okay, this is part of risk management. It's like, it's the basics. If a situation keeps happening, you need to mitigate it and stop putting your performers at risk. So that is all one piece of this. The other piece is whether or not this woman was forced to go back into the tank. So originally we all believed that she was forced because that is what the media was saying. And there are people who reached out to me who were there and watched this happen, or who work there and told me that this happened, that told me she was forced in. Multiple people. She has since come on my posts and on other people's posts and disputed that. She has also disputed it on People magazine. So let's look at both assumptions. Assumption one, she was forced back in. Obviously, this is terrible and not good, and she should not have been forced in if she was injured. And I did have people saying, well, why would she go back in? Like, why wouldn't she stand up to her employers? And I think it's really important here that in order to assume the truth on this matter, you remember that China is a different environment and that Russia is a different environment. And the way both of them approach working is a different environment than here. In the People magazine article, she gave the quote, "Foreigners are treated very well here." And when I read the article, to me, it really came off like a script, like she was being told to say this. And another reason why I believe that is basically that other merfolk from that area have said, you know, she was told to say this. She's afraid of being blacklisted. She's afraid of losing her job. And she's been there for 10 months and it's been very sustainable for her and a lot of her dream. And I want to give you an understanding that it is not always a good place for foreigners. My country, Canada, actually advises Canadians against going to China because they have been so hostile to foreigners. People are being arrested, people are being detained for very strange, practically made up reasons. And they're basically, our government is saying, like, if you go over there, you're taking a risk and you might not be able to get home. Anecdotally, I had a peer who took a program to teach English in China. He got there and nothing was what they said it was going to be. It was very poor conditions, very unsafe. He didn't feel safe. And so he turned around and tried to come home. And the officials that were sponsoring him to do this quite literally chased him through the airport, and then were even making announcements on the PA system to try to get him to stop and turn around, and he was able to get on a Canadian aircraft going home. This is no judgment on the Chinese people or anybody of Asian race. It is just the logistics of what is happening internationally with foreigners. Do foreigners go there and have a great experience? Yes. Is China a government that controls how people see it and controls the criticisms of it and do not really permit performers or anybody to go online and complain about conditions? Yes. So I feel the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. There are a lot of people telling me that this girl was put back in that tank, but she is saying herself that she wasn't. So I have to go with what she's saying, and that is what People magazine reported. And it could be that she's just doing damage control and she's trying to keep her job. I guess that's really going to be up to her. But moving forward, I think learning from this experience, I don't think it's right to victim shame her. Some of the posts I'm seeing are victim shaming her, like, well, what did you expect would happen because you rode this fish, or, you know, you're taking your life in your hands by doing this. There are ways to do this work safely, and it's very rewarding. And though there aren't any official studies, a lot of aquariums have done their own internal tracking, and mermaids really are a big draw, and they get people in the door, they get people signing up for memberships, and that money that's generated by that, it supports this mini economy of, you know, employing the people involved, but empowering these aquariums to take really good care of their animals and have the necessary funding needed to take care of their animals. There are some really tremendous aquarium groups out there and troops that perform. Wands and Wishes mermaids are like top notch. I'd love to see them perform live someday in my life. I have to settle for watching online, but they actually are all at minimum, I believe, certified scuba divers and free divers, and they suck off an air hose and they do all of their stuff, and they're in their beautiful silicone costumes, and they're just super pro. Again, my friends at Dive Bar, big fans there. They're in a much smaller tank and they're doing performances there, and they have all these checks and balances in place for safety. Mertailor, the person who makes my tails, he has an aquarium in Florida, and he built it with the shows in mind. So while there's a few animals in there, it was built more the performance display in like alongside the idea and inspiration of Weeki Wachee in Florida with the underwater performers. And I know that these groups, Wands and Wishes, Mertailor, Dive Bar, like they're always upping their game to do better. And they're constantly trying to be the leaders in the industry for doing well. There are, you know, aquarium situations that I don't agree with that I see happening. There's going to be a wide range. In Canada, I got to perform in an aquarium at Dalhousie University. The stipulation was that I was only in there when there were no animals in there, so that the animals' well-being would not be at risk. So basically, they would hire me because it was a research facility, and there were times that there was no research going on. So it was an empty aquarium, and they would hire me. I would come, I would do a show, and I would talk about the history of the aquarium. So it gave people a bit of a more interesting pull, considering that there were no creatures in there. Now, if I had the opportunity, I would absolutely love to have an experience like Wands and Wishes, or going down to Mer Taylor's aquarium and doing that. Like, I would really love to have an experience with one of those groups. I did get to go in the dive bar tank, which was really special to me, and a lot of rules to follow there, which I appreciate, because it's very clear that they're putting the animals first. You know, I wasn't allowed to wear a wig because it was endangering to the animals and it could clog the filtration system. And it annoyed me in the beginning, but then when I had the experience, I was like, okay, yeah, this makes sense, because you're literally trying to put the well-being of the animals first. We are guests in their home. So I think, you know, a lot can be learned from this. I think it's important to empower merfolk to speak up for their rights and to keep themselves safe. I think we need more standardization across the board, and we can't control what other countries and continents are doing. You know, I'm speaking as a Canadian here, so I can't control what happens in the States, and I obviously cannot control what happens in China, but I do think it's worth people contacting the Chinese aquarium and being like, there's a lot, you guys got a lot of safety problems going on. And same thing, we saw this South African one. I tried to make a video about that, and the mermaids from that came for me. I got some threats and like crazy posts online, and at the time I didn't have the spoons to deal with it. That's a term that we use in chronic illness, the spoons. I didn't have the energy to deal with it, so I just took my stuff down. But at some point, you know, I'm going to do a video about that too, because that was a really dangerous situation that needs to be prevented and continues to happen, right? So I care about this from all facets of it, and when these videos go viral, they make us all look bad, and that is not her fault. A combination of things were going wrong for her, right? But I hate that people's first introduction to professional mermaids is something like this, because what we do is so magical and so empowering and so inspiring, and it requires so much strength and agility and skill, and it's got so much value. It really sucks to water it down to like derpy viral videos. So anyway, that's my thoughts. I'd love to know your thoughts on this viral video and other viral videos. I think I would like to do a series where I kind of break down different viral mermaid videos and things like this and explain what's happening from this point of view. After all, I'm an OG mermaid performer who's been around a super long time. I might as well do something with my middle-aged mermaid knowledge now that I'm no longer a young 22-year-old like Maria. It's just interesting, right? How many times do you get to hear from a seasoned professional mermaid, I think? Anyway, if you've watched this long, I really appreciate you, and I hope if you're new, you will like and subscribe. If you're one of my regular subscribers, please drop me a comment and let me know your thoughts on this. I'm working hard on my YouTube to bring you some new content. It's just a bit of a slow season right now, and you know, there's like a whole trade war going on between our countries, and that is kind of bonkers, and I'm gonna go back to playing my violin on the Titanic. Best fishes!